music lovers everywhere. Yes, like many of you, I'm addicted to the dollar bin. I'm going to show just four records today that I've got out of the dollar bin. I've been thinking about doing this for a long time because over the last year I've picked more than a couple hundred records out of the dollar bin. More than half of them I haven't even had time to clean them up, play them, categorize them yet. But slowly I'm going through them. And yesterday evening, I was in the mood, so I picked a few records out of the my stacks from the dollar bin and cleaned them up and played them and had a pleasant surprise on each one. And it just all came together. This is a good time to do a dollar Binanza with four records I pulled, cleaned, played, listened to last night, which I think maybe are not a bad representation of what you might find in the dollar bin. One record you probably won't find in the dollar bin. The record that got me excited and started this whole process last night was this record. Torch, Carly Simon. Yeah, picked up three or four records out of the dollar bin for Carly Simon. I think this is the first one I pulled out and played. Makes me want to go find the rest of them. This is one of those records that you get just for whatever kind of reason. You know, it's $1 and you'll take a chance on it. And I had one of her records way back. I think it was called Hot Cakes, and it was one of the ones that with her previous husband, James Taylor, where they did Mockingbird, a great tune. This is a album Torch, which is Torch songs. But there's several things about this record that got me excited last night. I put it on without cleaning at first because the record's in pretty good shape, like they often are. Well, first thing is, man, this is a good record and it sounds great. Okay, so one of the things about these records, when they come with the inner sleeve, has all the information on it so that you know what's going on. That makes it a lot more enjoyable. Look at this picture here. She had those big lips, I think natural probably before they got popular. Now people have to pay money to have that. But what's one of the things that makes this good? Well, it tells you about the music and so forth. Well, the first thing on here, this is records 1981, mastered by Bob Ludwig. When we see these names that we become familiar with here, the guys that do great mastering in the modern, when they did the mastering back then, when they were probably just getting going, that meant those were great sounding records. This was a good sounding, great sounding record. This record is good news, bad news. What do I mean? Well, side A is terrific. If we were on a scale of 10, I would rate it certainly 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10. Side B, I rate maybe a 6 out of 10. This is like two different records. You wonder what the heck's going on. It's supposed to be Torch songs. Well, there's one big difference on side A. First off, it contains songs we know and recognize that are all good. Blue of Blue, which I wasn't familiar with. It's pretty good. Then I'll Be Around. I Got It Bad. That Ain't Good. I Get Along Without You Very Well. And Body and Soul. Well-known tunes. She does an outstanding job on them. You listen to the first three tunes, you wouldn't even recognize it probably as Carly Simon. But that's not the whole story. These have great arrangements. So, like we've talked about before, when you have a good artist, they have good people like to play with them. So who do we have on this record? We have David Sanborn doing a bunch of alto sax solos on the various tracks. We have Warren Bernhardt on piano, and we have Lee Ritenour on guitar. And the bass players and the drum players aren't bad either. So you listen to side A, and I'd pay $10 for that record, not just $1 out of the dollar bin. So what happens when you get to side B? Well, the tunes aren't as good. top-notch players are gone, and mostly you have a piano with orchestra backing, so it just turns in to the kind of music you expect in the dollar bin, but worth the money for side A. And comes back again that when you get these liner notes, it gives you all the information, who produced it, all of that kind of stuff. Makes it more enjoyable and helps with the value. This is Warner Brothers plate label. I put down the jacket's a little bit worn. The record's VG plus. Okay, the next record I got out of a dollar bin. I went to a music festival. It happened to be a ragtime music festival, and in the room where they sell CDs of the people who are performing in the festival, the lady running that had a couple boxes of records, and guess what? I found this record for $1. Probably his most famous record. What would be his best record would get a lot of people discussing that, but I think this is maybe his most well-known record amongst the general public. 2 LPs. The cover's got some ring wear. The cover's been beat around a little bit. This is 1970. Again, cleaned this up and played it last night. Outstanding sound. Big 3-dimensional holographic sound stage. Now, I'm in the Vinyl Community College, and this kind of music will be in one of our classes. And this kind of music, this is what I thought modern jazz sounded like. Now, it doesn't all sound like this. I've found out a lot of it's a little easier to get into. I'm getting into this, but this is one of those Vinyl Community College classes where to get an A is going to take some work. It's not going to be an easy A class like these other 3 records that I'll show. You might be happy to take this class and get out of there with a B. So, I'm not going to take this out. Everybody's familiar with it. It's on Columbia. One thing that's interesting, back in the day, you know, if you what we call hipsters now, I don't remember what we called them then, but you had to listen to a certain kind of music and so forth to be hip, to be cool, whatever the words were. Well, this was probably one of those records that people showed to their friends when they were over, maybe didn't play it, and then when their friends left, they put on some Henry Mancini or something, because the records in here are virtually unplayed. When you look to spindle holes, they just look like they haven't been played. So I'm really happy to get that record for $1. The next record I got for $1. Pete Fountain, New Orleans. Not going to show the record and so forth with this, but I got it very good plus. 1959. An excellent sounding record. Mentions on the back that this is real stereo. They didn't say not fake stereo, and it is real stereo very early for 1959. The sound on here is excellent. It says on the back it's clarinet solo with rhythm accompaniment. So you have a piano, a bass, and drums, and when you listen to this, again, excellent sounding. The drummer guy was great. Had to look it up. Who's the drummer on here? Jack Sperling. Well, he was a famous drummer. So if you like drums, you can enjoy this record. This record is what some of you might say Dixieland or traditional jazz. It's maybe even a little bit towards easy listening. It's New Orleans standard kind of tunes, but very musical, very well done. Pretty early Pete Fountain, who just died this last year. He did a lot of records, and this is one in the dollar bin that I would say is probably one of his best ones. I might have even had this record, probably not in 1959, but I probably had it in the 70s. One thing about this, what is this? This is jazz. The music you guys call Dixieland is the music the word jazz was invented for around World War I. So we have punk and post-punk. I don't know what that is, but in my collection, I now have jazz in two categories, jazz and post-jazz. This is jazz. This is post-jazz. What's the delineation? World War II. Jazz is the jazz music up until the end of World War II. Post-jazz, that's the music that come later. I'm changing the categories for everybody. My last record here, Tony Bennett, The Art of Excellence, 1986. This record near mint. If it hadn't have been for a couple of price stickers put on and put over each other and so forth, this record would just be near mint. I'm never particularly a big fan of Tony Bennett. I got his CDs here more recently where he's doing duets and stuff. The first vinyl I ever had of his was his record done a year or two ago with him and Lady Gaga, which I really enjoy. So what's special about this record? Well, photography on this album is done by Annie Leibovitz, famous photographer. So just maybe the photograph's worth a buck, but this is like the first record where it's so important when you get the original inner sleeve. I'm telling you, it's worth $1 just for this picture on the inner sleeve. Look at that guy. It's very interesting, you know, we get history when we get records, not just into music, but we look at this picture. And of course, Tony Bennett is a painter, an artist, and in this photograph is in his studio with a few of his paintings sitting around. So, very interesting. Nice on the other side, some stuff from the studio. Again, Bob Ludwig mastered. Great sounding record. The music on here, just, you know, dollar bin record music, and you wouldn't get excited. But the sound quality is excellent, and there's one standout track on here that makes you enjoy the record and happy you have it. The last tune on side A, Everybody Has the Blues, is a duet with Ray Charles. All of this album was recorded in London, except the Ray Charles track was recorded in Los Angeles. And so we got Ray Charles on piano and them doing a duet. I don't know if that was one of his first duets like he does so much of now, but practically worth $1 just to have that track, and certainly worth $1 to have this picture. So you guys that aren't into the dollar bin, give it a chance. You'll like it. See ya.